Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews Now 2, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at a budget contender that could be used with Intel's low-end 12th gen processors. This is the ASUS Prime H610M-K D4. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we'll be taking a look at ASUS's budget offering in the 12th gen segment for DDR4 users. This is the Prime H610M-K D4. Motherboard names are getting longer and longer, I swear. Easy thing to remember with ASUS range, if you see a D4, it basically means it's for the DDR4 versions. If you see D5 or some other letter, then potentially it's going to be for DDR5. So just to clarify that. This obviously is H610 motherboard, so this is the kind of the bottom basement for Intel boards in 12th generation, and also is most likely to be supporting 13th gen on the LGA 1800 socket as well. So potentially this could last you a little while, at least 2 generations anyway. It looks already as if the 14th gen is going to be on a new socket altogether, so obviously it does bear in mind that is it actually worth spending a ton of money on a motherboard for Intel processors. Obviously, depending on the processor and your overclocking needs, etc, etc, maybe you want to spend a little bit more money, but for a lot of people, if you're just getting into PC gaming or you just want to build a general purpose workhorse or office machine, that kind of thing, something like the H610 chipset is going to be absolutely fine. It's going to cover most bases. Now the problem has been recently with Intel boards, there's not been very much in the sub £100 or sub $100 range on the market at all. And that was very much the case over here, Intel very recently. We're starting to see, especially from certain UK suppliers such as CCL and also on eBay, that type of thing, we're starting to see some motherboards come out in the kind of £50 bracket, which then makes Intel's i3 12100 processor much more viable in terms of the competition against AMD at the moment. So today we're going to go through, do an unboxing of the motherboard, go through the pros and cons, look at all the features and all the connections, etc. And then we'll come back at the end and discuss whether or not it's actually worthwhile getting one of these boards in 2022. So let's start off with the packaging. As you can see, this is following in ASUS's kind of theme for the Prime board, so very similar to the Z690 boards in the Prime range, all following that same sort of familiar look. Support at the bottom for Intel processors, so this is going to be for the G series, the Celerons, Pentiums, i3s, i5s, i7s, i9s. Realistically, probably i7s and i9s, probably not the best solution to be going with a board like this. These are more tailored, I think, personally towards the i3 and i5s, but let me know what you think in the comments section below. Based on the LGA 1700 socket and supports HDMI, and also is Windows 11 ready, which is either a good or a bad thing, depending on which side of the fence you're on. Looking on the back of the box goes into some of the details in more depth. So you've got all the different settings there, all the different features, so the I/O panel, etc, etc. Kind of the key things on this, I guess, really, there's not really a lot to be excited about, but it does suggest there is gaming audio, which I'm not really sure gaming audio is much different from regular audio, maybe slightly lower latency, but anyway, I digress. 5 times improvement or 5 times protection, so you've got things like anti-surge and all that kind of overvolting, etc. M.2 support, both for PCI Express NVMe drives and also SATA M.2s. And also you've got ASUS Fan Xpert, which is not going to have a great deal on its hands because there's only 2 fan headers on this board, so yeah, not a lot of control needed there. Looking inside the box, so we get the usual kind of stuff. So we get our safety information, there is a motherboard guide, quick guide, there's the full user guide which goes through and tells you about the BIOS and how to set it up, etc, etc. There's also a DVD drive with all the drivers and necessary things on. This is actually something which might be quite useful, depending on who is going to be using this. I would envisage that a lot of people are going to be using these for kind of office PCs or maybe kind of workhorse PCs, in which case there's a strong chance that you are going to have a CD drive or a DVD drive, so that could come in quite handy. Also, getting the drivers for some of these Intel boards does seem a little bit more problematic. I think AMD do a much better job in terms of their kind of all-in-one driver, but again, let me know what you think about that in the comments. Also included, there is a couple of SATA cables. There is a M.2 anchor, which is using their new kind of technology. I guess it's not really technology, but their new plastic mounting system. So rather than having the metal pillars and the metal screws, you've now got a plastic with a kind of like a ring pull on there for actually fastening M.2 drives, which I think is actually a really good thing. Very difficult to actually lose the handle as well. Also included is a I/O shield, which, yeah, not the prettiest of things, but certainly it shields the I/O, so what more can you want? Now the next part of this is the bit I really do love, because on these more budget orientated boards, this next bit is a piece of cake. So let's drill through all the connectivity. So let's start up on the top left corner. So we've got an 8-pin EPS connector. This is your supplementary power for your processor. Not really a great deal else going on up here. We've got a 5+3 VRM setup, so clearly kind of do temper your expectations. It does say in the CPU support list that this will support up to a 12900KF. Whether or not that is a good combination on this, I would say definitely not. But certainly, like I said earlier, i3, i5 processors, definitely none of the K range, because it's absolutely pointless, because this board does not allow any form of overclocking in terms of either RAM, base clock, or the frequencies, that kind of stuff, or dividers. So don't be expecting any of that. This is kind of a lock-in load. You can enable XMP. You will get a maximum of around about 3200 megatransfers per second for your RAM sticks. Obviously, that is going to be dependent very much on the processor you're using. So do bear that in mind. Obviously, most probably i3s, i5s are going to be limited somewhere around the 2666 or 2933 ranges. So yeah, do bear that in mind. Next to the RAM slots, you've got your CPU header for your fan. So just a standard PWM. It does support ASUS fan control, so you can use Fan Xpert, or you can use Armory Crate should you be brave enough. I would advise against it, but certainly if you want to, you certainly can do. Moving down, you've got the 24-pin power connector. Obviously 2 RAM sticks there, so you can have dual channel RAM. Supports up to 64 gigs, so 232 gig sticks. Potentially that might change to 128 by the time you've read this. I have read that they are looking at updating it, so it will support 128. That may be the case already. Depending when you're watching this, that may or may not be true. Moving down, we've got a USB 3.0 front panel header there, and next to that is your SATA 4 connector. So that is a SATA 6 connection number 4. If you're using a SATA M.2 drive in the M.2 port here, this particular port will be disabled because they are both shared on the H610 chipset. So bear that in mind if you do want to populate all 4 SATA ports and also use a SATA drive on there. Sadly you can't, you will need to use an NVMe drive in there. That'll be absolutely fine. Obviously, straight in the middle there, we've got the LGA 1700 socket, or arguably LGA 1800, but yeah, currently they're known as LGA 1700. Moving across from there, there is our single solitary chassis fan header. So just the one on there. Again, this is kind of aimed more so at office builds, that sort of thing. There's no reason why you can't build a gaming PC out of this. Just do bear in mind that you'll need either a separate fan controller or hub of some sort with a remote control, or you'd need a splitter of some sort to run a signal from this header into a splitter and then additional fans. So yeah, just do bear that in mind. Moving down from there, we've got a TPM header, should you wish to use an additional TPM header on there. Also speaker panel connection, front panel connections, all that is down here. Also, next to that, we've got our 3 SATA ports, so 4 in total, like I said before. Heatsink over the H610 chipset there. PCI Express Gen 4 x16 slot for your graphics. So that is a little bit of a down step. Obviously with B660 and Z690, you're potentially looking at PCI Express Gen 5 on there. Realistically, I think most cards on the market at the moment are going to be PCI Express Gen 4 at best. Gen 3 obviously is the kind of the more common one out there at the moment, depending obviously when you're watching this, of course. Moving down and moving along, so we've got a USB front panel header there, so for USB 2.0. Next to that, you've got the clear real-time clock, or CMOS reset button, or pins rather. Then you've got a COM port, so if you want to add a serial port, you can do, just connect it to that header there. Next, that is a little bit of a disappointment in my opinion, which is a 12-volt RGB connection, not a addressable RGB. So if you want to go addressable, going to need a different board or a separate controller to do that, I'm afraid. You've got a digital SPDIF out for the audio, and then you've got an audio front panel connector. Moving up from that, there is a PCI Express Gen 3 x1 slot, so if you want to add in an additional card, say a network card or Wi-Fi card, which is something you might want to consider because this does not have built-in Bluetooth or built-in Wi-Fi. So for those of you that do need either of those features, you will need to purchase a separate either USB adapter or PCI Express card for that particular purpose. Just above that, you've got your BIOS battery there and obviously audio chipset down here. This is using Realtek's 897 audio codec, so potentially that might change as well because of there's problems with supply and demand, etc. You may find that you end up with an 893 or 897, 895. I think they're all pretty much identical anyway, just very, very slight revisions in those. So yeah, essentially it is supporting 7.1 audio, although in order to do 7.1 you will have to use your front panel connectors along with the rear panel connectors, because there's only 3 on the back. So to get those extra channels, you need to use your front panel audio as well, should you want to. So that's pretty much it for the board. Other than that, I would say the only thing I particularly like about this actually is the board's aesthetics, or the general overall look of it. It's got a really nice kind of sapphire black look to it, all very much in keeping with modern kind of case and PC design. So you've got lots of black, lots of grey, lots of silver, lots of chromey kind of look. So yeah, very monochrome. Do like it a lot. No hints of green, brown, beige, or any of those kind of things that are somewhat annoying. Moving on to the back, so this is our I/O, so nothing to get too excited about. Again, this is pretty much just a functional motherboard. You've got combo PS2 port for keyboard and mouse, should you wish to use it in that fashion. Pair of USB 2.0 ports, HDMI port there, so that's going to support HDMI 2.1, so you're looking at 4K 60Hz maximum. Obviously, depending on the processor, having onboard graphics, if you have got one of those processors. If you have an F series processor that does not have built-in graphics, these will be disabled, so you will need a discrete graphics card. Next up, VGA port. Don't see those very often these days, but it's actually, again, a little bit of a nod back towards those office-type PCs where maybe you've got an older VGA device that you maybe want to take use of, or possibly even an old projector and that kind of thing. Next up, we've got another 2 USB ports. These are USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, Type A. Then next up, you've got another 2 USB 2.0 ports, Type A. Above that, we've got our gigabit LAN, so 1 gigabit LAN based on the Realtek RTL81118 chipsets. Yeah, absolutely fine. Also does 10100 for backwards compatibility. Then we've got our 3 audio jacks, which again, like I said, if you want to use 7.1 audio, which is, I guess, highly unlikely for this, you can combine the front panel jacks should you need to. But there you go. Overall, that is it. Not really a lot to get excited about. Nothing on the back. No additional hidden M.2 ports, unfortunately. Just to kind of clarify again, the M.2 port does support both drives, NVMe, PCI Express Gen 3 x4, and also SATA drives, so that's going to be SATA 6. If you do use it in SATA mode, then obviously you do lose that SATA port there. Nice that they've actually put it there, so it kind of gives you an idea that that one's going to be blocked out. I don't think many people these days will probably be populating with that many kind of older SATA drives, but possibly they might do. I think realistically most people will probably just stick one drive in there, get the machine up and running, and that'll be it. Clearly, upgrade pathwise, there isn't going to be a huge amount you can do with this. It is kind of almost obsolete already, even though it's just come out, because we know 14th gen is going to be a completely different socket type and going to be pretty much completely DDR5 only. So yeah, we do have that to look forward to. But essentially, overall, I picked this up for £50 for, well, £50 and 27 pence to be exact, with free postage from CCL here in the UK. This video isn't sponsored or affiliated with them in any way, shape or form, but I do find I get some really good bargains there from their kind of clearance section. So if you are thinking about Intel 12th gen and you want to build yourself a nice little budget system, definitely worth looking at Intel 12th gen, especially the 12100, the 12100F if you wanted to, if you don't need the onboard graphics. And in fact, the 12100 with the built-in graphics actually can play some games and at actually reasonable resolutions and frame rates, which really surprised me. And in fact, we will be doing some follow-up videos on this particular board and that setup. So if you want to see how that goes, don't forget to stay subscribed and see how that goes. But I think that's going to wrap this one up for now. Any comments or questions, stick them in the comments section below. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. And hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.